Michael Zinski wasn't my usual type of client. He wasn't a spurned lover looking for revenge, or a murderer looking to snuff out the witnesses of his crime, or a husband hungry for his wife's insurance policy. He was just an ordinary guy looking out for his sister. I wouldn't normally resort to such drastic measures, but Harold has become so awful, treats her like garbage, doesn't give a rat's ass about her or anything except for that stupid band he sings in with his work buddies. He blew his nose loudly. You understand that, right, Switchblade? I winced. Hey, that's just my alias, Michael. You shouldn't, actually call me that during casual conversation. Then what should I call you? I blinked. Clearly, he had never done anything like this before. Hey, do you have the cash? His eyes darted around the diner. Then, from his pocket, he pulled out a wad of $100 bills. Hey, you can't just... they'll see it. I hastily threw him one of my napkins. Wrap it up in that, and do it discreetly. He wasn't discreet, but thankfully, the diner was nearly empty at this hour. It's twice your usual rate, he whispered very loudly. I wanted to give you a big tip, so you'll do a good job. A tip? You're not ordering an ice cream cone, Michael. You're ordering a hit. But I took the cash, I smiled, and I buried it deep in my pocket. And I don't want you to kill him. What? Michael, you know I'm a hitman, right? Yes, but Nancy needs his income. She's been a housewife for the past 20 years. No work experience, no education past high school. There's no way she could support herself on her own. Michael, you could support her with the cash you just gave me. He shook his head. I've tried. She won't let me. Cares too much. I sighed. Well, okay. Suppose I take you up on this job. What do you even want me to do to him if I can't kill him? I don't know. Scare him. Threaten him. Just make him stop being so terrible to her. But it's risky business. I mean, he'll know what I look like. And look, he'll go on Sunday morning. He'll be napping alone in the house. Won't even see you come in. Michael looked down at the table, and then he added, It's the only time he's ever alone in the house. The only time he lets her leave. My belligerence evaporated, and I felt a pang of sympathy. It's that bad? He nodded. Okay, I'm in. The house was a tiny little thing, shoved into the gap between a massive brownstone and a dilapidated food mart. It would be a challenge to do it without any witnesses. But good, I like a challenge. I snuck through the backyard, creatively using the various bushes and fencing to hide from onlookers. I then stepped into the window, like Michael told me to. The knife was heavy in my hands. I turned left at the kitchen and crept into the living room. In the center was a microphone, a music stand, and some sheet music. I assumed this was for Harold and his band. Nancy's needlepoint supplies were pushed into the corner, taking up as little space as they possibly could. I walked into the next room, and there, in the armchair, sat Harold, fast asleep. I took out the chloroform from my pocket and, with the grace of a dancer, laid it against his nose. I then set to work. I visited Nancy myself a few weeks later. I like to do that sometimes, posing as a friendly neighbor to see how their lives have changed in the wake of my work. Yeah, I know it increases my chances of getting caught, but as I said, I like a challenge. When she flung the door open, her eyes were bright and she had a smile. Hi, I'm Smith Baker, I said. Just moved here, a few houses away, behind the food mart. Oh, how nice. Please come in. She led me into the living room, and I smiled. The music stand and other music equipment were thrown haphazardly in the corner, and Nancy's needlepoint was sprawled across the entire sofa, taking up as much space as it possibly could. Smith, this is my husband, Harold. He just stared at me, still, silent, pale. And then he started shaking, wildly, clawing at the raw, red mark across his throat. Oh, sorry, I should explain, she sat down with a small smile. He's not trying to be rude. It's just that, well, he had an accident a few weeks ago, and now I'm afraid he can't speak. She patted his arm comfortingly as he clung to her. Or sing, unfortunately. An accident that mysteriously cut his vocal cords. and left the rest of him untouched. I could see Harold's hand shaking, his lips trembling. I wonder if he was thinking about the first thing I said to him when the chloroform wore off. If you don't treat Nancy right, I'll slit your throat again. And next time, you'll lose more than just your voice. I smiled at Harold. Would you like a cookie? I asked, holding out the tray. I baked them myself. My next client was typical. Ed Smithers, 45, looking to off his wife, Allison, so he could run away with his mistress, who was aptly named Bunny. This was an easy one. Too easy, really. Their mansion stood on a 5-acre plot far away from any potential witnesses. The back door would be unlocked. Ed would be practicing pool and downing whiskey in the basement, and Allison would be getting ready for bed upstairs. I slid the door open. The house was dark and quiet. I took off my shoes. I tiptoed across the marble floor and up the stairs. The rush of the water came from the bathroom. She was in the shower. So I hid behind the master bedroom door and waited. What? You thought I'd kill her in the shower? Please. I'm a hitman, not a barbarian. Let's get her dressed first, then we can get to work. Within 10 minutes, I heard the water shut off, the dulled thump of damp footsteps on tile, and the click of the doorknob turning. And then she walked out into the bedroom. I just stood there, watching her through the crack in the door for several minutes. She sat on the bed in her pajamas, running a towel through her damp hair. She doesn't even know. The words rang out in my head, unbidden. She doesn't know that her husband hates her so much, he wants her to die. My hands were getting sweaty, and the knife began to slip. She doesn't know that her husband is a monster, just like Harold. I stepped out from behind the door. Allison dropped the towel, her eyes widened, and she began to scream. Allison, just like Nancy, just like Mom. I clamped my hand over her mouth. Listen to me very carefully. Do not scream, I growled. Do not call the police, or I will kill you. She nodded, trembling with sobs. That's the voice I use when I want to scare people and get their attention. I snatched her phone off the desk for good measure, and then I ran down the stairs, down into the basement, where I found Ed, perched over the pool table. Is it finished? He asked, barely looking up. Clack. The cue hit the ball, sending the 7 into the hole. Yeah, I replied. Behind him, I pulled one of the cues off the rack. Clack. The balls all scattered. Oh, good, he said. You'll find the rest of your fee and a tip on the coffee table over there. What is it with these people and tips? But I held my tongue and crept closer to him, rolling the cue between my fingers. I've got to ask, what did Allison do to you to make you want to kill her? He chuckled. Clack. The 9 sank in the hole. She got old. I pulled the knife out. And then, well, I won't give you the juicy details, but let's just say this. He's not going to have sex with Bunny. Ever again. Harold spoke to the police, you know. Or, well, didn't speak. He wrote. Michael slid the sheet of paper across the table to me. 5'9", 150 pounds? Oh, that's very flattering. I'm barely 5'7" on a good day. I began to laugh. And that's a great police sketch. Look at that jaw. Chiseled. So manly. How can you be so casual about this? I laughed. This isn't my first rodeo, Michael. But they're going to catch you. They have a sketch. In Harold's testimony? And what's that worth? I laughed. Judging by the twinkle in Nancy's eye, she knows damn well what happened. She's not going to back up his story. Besides, I called in a favor. What? Let's just say I have quite a few friends at the hospital. I don't understand. Hospital records now show that, tragically, Harold Smith had glottic cancer. So, a few weeks ago, he decided to get a vocal cordectomy. I plucked the last cheese fry off the plate. Harold's testimony will be seen as nothing but the ramblings of a crazy old man. That's brilliant. But to be safe, I dyed my hair from brown to blonde. Oh, is that why you're wearing the hat? Yeah, I kind of messed it up. But Brittany at the salon will fix it. She owes me a favor. I killed her uncle at half price because I wanted to impress her. I wiped the grease from my hands on a napkin. Turns out, she had a boyfriend the whole time. Michael just stared at me, blankly. Anyway, the whole reason I wanted to meet with you, Michael, is because I wanted to ask, do you know of any other evil people like Harold? What? I'm hanging up my hitman's hat, or noose, or whatever. So you want to become, like, a hitman vigilante? Yeah, sort of. Michael leaned back and crossed his arms. Not that I know personally, but there's always Black Widow. What? That's what I call her. You probably know her as Femme Fatale, because that's what the media's been calling her too. She's the one that killed all the rich people in 2010. Or, well, I guess she didn't kill them. She tied them up alive and their 3 golden retrievers. He trailed off. Several other deaths were linked to her over the years, one recent, but they never caught her. Wait, how do they know it's a woman? Long brown hairs were found at the crime scene, and they calculated her stature to be pretty short, I believe. I suppose I'll give it a try, I said, with a slurp of Coke. Not like I have anything better to do. After pouring hours into researching Black Widow, I pinpointed a possible location. There was an abandoned house at the end of April Lane. The police had found one of the murder weapons there a few years ago. She was long gone since, but maybe I'd find some clues inside. I stepped over the dilapidated fencing. The house was pocked with patches of rot, and the whole thing leaned askew, as if it was going to fall any second. The windows were all shattered, and so I had no problem getting in. Unfortunately, it appeared to be completely empty. I walked up the stairs anyway, my flashlight catching clouds of dust swirling in the light. I walked from bedroom to bedroom, praying the creaking floorboards wouldn't snap under my weight. But when I entered the last bedroom, my heart soared. There was an old board nailed to the wall. Scraps of notes and photographs covered it. Why didn't the police take this in as evidence, I thought. But then I realized the film of dust on the board was far thinner than the rest of the house. It was new. And one photograph was pinned in the center. A man with brown hair, wearing a black hoodie, walking down Main Street. No. My heart began to pound. It was me. Surprisingly enough, I have a lot more clients now than I used to. Did you know the demand to maim people is higher than the demand to kill them? Honestly, I don't know why more hitmen don't do it. I guess they figure the risk is too high, but I find whoever is hiring you, the abused wife, the estranged son, is willing to put in the extra work to make sure you don't get caught. Also, I've started wearing a hockey mask, just to be safe. It's actually great. The victims are much more scared of me now. Something about a guy named Jason? I don't know. Sounds like a chill guy. So I've updated my credentials on the dark web, which is not nearly as scary as you guys make it sound. Sure, there's lots of drugs and porn, but there's also some really nice people on there, like me. And on Tuesday evening, among dozens of messages from clients, there was a message from Silver4239. All it said was, "Please call me," and then a phone number. Now, I understand not putting your desire to stab the hell out of your ex-boyfriend in writing, but this was shorter than usual. When I called, a young woman's voice answered.
"I don't have long,"
she said in a hushed whisper.
He's threatened me. I'm not supposed to talk to anyone.
Don't worry. What do you need?
I can't say more. Just come to our house, 12 Thistle Drive, on Wednesday night at 10 p.m. The back door will be unlocked, and bring your switchblade.
I laughed. It's actually just my alias. I use a normal knife. It's a lot easier to... Hello? I shrugged and set the phone down. The house was much smaller than my usual clients. Probably won't get paid for this. I ducked around the bushes into the backyard. Though, I guess I could do it pro bono. She seemed pretty upset. I found the back door unlocked as promised and slipped into the dark kitchen, taking off my shoes at the entrance. The house was even uglier on the inside. The only nice thing about it was a huge painting hung next to the front door of a man standing on the beach with his kid. She didn't tell me where to go. I shrugged, pulled out the knife, and crept up the stairs. The faint squeak of a door. I whipped around, but all the doors were shut tight. Which one first? I thought. Judging by the cracks under the door, all of them led to dark rooms. And then the rush of water. The bathroom. I grabbed the knob and twisted it. The faucet was on. Water was filling up the sink, splashing out on the counter. But the bathroom was quiet and dark. No one was there. I walked over to the sink, and with a gloved hand, I twisted it off. And then, from behind me, from the shower curtain, a hand shot out. It grabbed me, pulling me back by the collar. I went flying. Crack! My head slammed against the side of the tub. I tried to scramble up, but could feel the cold steel of a knife pressed against my neck, so I froze. "You're early," the voice said. I looked up. A woman crouched over me, petite, with brown curls and piercing blue eyes. She looked almost as if she'd gotten dressed up for this. Red lipstick and a long black gown. No, she smiled. "You're Black Widow, aren't you?" "I prefer Ray," she said, pulling off my mask. "Did you bring a switchblade like I asked?" Her right hand nimbly feeling my front pockets. "No." "Oh well, I thought it would be poetic to kill Switchblade with a switchblade." She pushed the knife harder against my throat. "Why do you want me dead?" I glanced at the floor. My knife had fallen in the scuffle and lay several feet away. Damn it. "Someone asked me to kill you." "A family member of one of your victims, I assume. And they're willing to pay a lot of money," she replied. "I need the money. It's nothing personal. But you still have enough money to buy fancy gowns to murder people in, apparently." She shook her head, her brown curls falling around her. "No, I only have the one. I take care of all my victims in this gown." "That's kind of gross." I wriggled my arm away from where it had been in contact with her and slid it underneath me. "Don't worry, I clean it every time." I laughed. "Must be one hell of a dry cleaning bill." "It's nothing personal, Switchblade. In fact, you seem quite charming, and under different circumstances." Her right hand trailed up my thigh, as her left hand kept the knife against my neck. I smiled back at her. "Yeah? We might have a little fun." My hand wriggled further underneath me until I reached my back pocket, but I maintained the intense eye contact with her and a small smile on my lips. She took the bait and leaned forward and kissed me. I yanked the switchblade out of my pocket. In one motion, I swung it forward, right into her hand. The knife clattered to the floor. "You bastard," she screamed. "Good luck stabbing me to death with your left hand," I laughed. I picked up her knife from the floor and began to walk away. But I underestimated her, because she leapt up with the speed of a tiger and flew at me. This time she didn't miss. We went tumbling down the stairs. I stabbed at her wildly. She clawed at me, bit at my arms, and then we reached the bottom with a sickening thud. She thrashed and shrieked underneath me. "Let me go, you monster." "Shut up." I pulled out her knife, and then I set to cutting off her right hand. "Wait!" she cried. "Please don't do it." "Too bad." "No, please!" She began to sob, mascara running down her cheeks. "I use that hand to paint. My father and I, we paint together." She trailed off into ugly, choking sobs. "You're obviously lying." "No, I'm not. The painting by the front door, we did it together, and..." She shook her head. Just please, spare me. This is probably the stupidest thing I've ever done, but I actually believe her." I eased off her. Carrying her knife, I walked to the door. Before I swung it open, I saw the signature scrawled in the lower left corner. Ray and Harold Bradshaw, and heard her whisper, barely audible above the wind.